Hi everybody, I'm back. Okay, so here we are, step 2 in the soup. So what I have now is I have this just kind of loose, sort of rough puree of leek, onion, and rosemary and garlic. And this is what I call like a sofrito, which is a fancy culinary term, and it basically can look like a lot of things. But it's a really great way to start the base of a really simple soup. So this is going to be a pureed soup, so it's fine that it's kind of all like broken up, and it's even okay to have it be kind of pureed like this if you're doing a soup with chunkies and you're okay with having it be a finer texture. But for the interest of like ease, I'm just kind of talking about pureed soups. So this can look like as simple as just onions and garlic. It could even be just onions alone. It could also be mirepoix, which is carrots, celery, and onions. I also will often like throw in random other things that I have around the house, like a half a pepper, weird tomatoes. Sometimes I add some green tomatoes. I can put those in. I'm trying to convey the flexibility of your sofrito. So I've got that. I've got a generous, no lie, amount of butter in my pot. It's probably about a whole stick of butter because I'm going to make like this whole pot pretty much full of soup. So I'm browning my butter, and if you guys watched my earlier video about how to not scorch your pot bottoms, which if you haven't seen it, run back to the interweb, go back a page and check that out because it's really useful. And it's talking about putting something in your pan to keep it from burning. Now butter, you don't have that same issue with because butter is a mixture of milk solids and water and cream and all this thing. It's not a pure fat with no water in it. Butter has a lot of water in the mixture. So when butter gets hot, it starts to bubble and pop and foam and make all these noises and smells. So you have all these indicators. So that's really helpful. With other stuff, if it's a no water environment, then you don't have any of those indicators, and that's why it's really helpful to have something to indicate that for you. So maybe now you don't need to watch it as much because I just told you a lot of it. I just pulled a mom there. Okay, so I have my butter, my sofrito, and I'm just going to saute this for a few minutes. I don't have a lot of time for this soup. It's 4:15 right now, and I have a gym class that I have to go to at 5:30, so I need to hustle this along, and the way that I'm doing that is by making my sofrito, so that's already broken down. If I had big pieces of onions, which for a pureed soup, obviously, who gives a shit how things are cut? It's going to get pureed anyway. I could do big pieces of onions, but in the interest of time, I can't. So I'm going to cut everything really small and thin so it'll cook very quickly. So I have my sofritoed onions. I have my little shoestring potatoes that I cut with my apple peeler corer. And these, I mean, you can see how thin that is. That's maybe 1/4 of an inch. These will cook very, very quickly. So I'm going to, as soon as this sautés a little bit, I of course am going to season this because you want to season everything in layers as you go. So when this sautés a little bit, I'm going to add my potatoes in, I'm going to add water in, I'm going to add maybe a couple extra sprigs of rosemary, bring it up to a simmer so that everything is kind of dissolved. Then I'm going to taste it for seasoning, and what that broth should taste like is really fucking good right off the spoon. Like the broth itself should have a wonderful flavor already, which it's going to get because there's a lot of butter to start, so that's really good. And then you have all these nice herbs and onion, and then basically all I have to do is let it come to a simmer, cook it for maybe like 4 minutes, enough to get this tiny thin potato cooked through, and then I just throw my immersion blender in there and just buzz the shit out of it. And I did buy some heavy cream because I wanted it to be a little more luscious, but often you could make it without that, and it's going to be a little bit rustic because I've got some skin on my potatoes still. But I think that's great. It'll be a really nice, clean, rusticy soup. I have a bunch of parsley that I got from my CSA. I'm going to chop that up and put it in right at the end so it stays real bright and green. If I put it in early, you would lose a lot of that flavor because parsley is a much softer herb, so it doesn't have the muscles like me to last for that long. So Everything is boiling along, and then I've got my scraps in my separate pot to be my kind of like backup stock, because obviously potatoes are naturally very starchy, and so I have to make sure the like liquid to guts ratio is okay, so that when I puree it, I don't have mashed potatoes, I have soup. And basically the only difference between my soup and mashed potatoes is the amount of liquid. So if you ever make mashed potatoes and they're way too loose, just make soup and say, oh, it's totally intentional. So that's about it. I'll check in with you guys a little bit later when I'm getting ready to puree my soup. Okay, thanks.